Today we are starting off with some diag on the S3. There's a couple of issues that it's having, so let's head to the shed so I can show you what I mean. So as a quick recap for those who don't know, this is my Audi S3 that I've been building. But ever since I've owned it, it's had a pretty bad idle, so I'll show you guys that. Let's start this thing up. Now, another issue we're having is that the lights, inside and outside, I don't know if you can quite see on the dash there, but the lights are dimming out and in constantly. So we're gonna have a look at a few things to see how we can fix that. A few things that come to mind is when the car is running, it needs to build up vacuum pressure. So if it's not idling correctly, there must be a leak somewhere in this engine bay. Now, knowing 1.8Ts from my GTI, I know that these brake booster lines on the cars always seem to crack and have issues that make the car idle terribly. Now this one also looks like it's been fiddled around with some time. So we're gonna have a look down there and see if we can find any cracks or issues. So what we're gonna do is have a look from the start of the line all the way back to the firewall and down to the brake booster and see if we can find any splits or cracks in the hose that we can find. And if we find any cracks, then we know we found a vacuum leak. All right, so it looks like we found a vacuum leak here where just right here you can see a little hairline crack right there that I can fit my nail in, and that is definitely number one. We've also found the check valve is cracked, so that's definitely an issue as well. Sadly, I don't have any of that hose laying around, so we're gonna have to do a quick parts run. So let's head to the store.
So 37.40.
Yep, on card. Thank you, have a good day. Alrighty, so we've just got our hose, which is an 8.8mm inner diameter vacuum hose. I've just stopped by a hardware store so we can just get some hose clamps and then we can head back. Alrighty, so we've got our hose clamps, a new replacement check valve, and some new hose. We just need to take the old one off and then install the new hose. Brake booster hose is now replaced. It's looking good. I'm pretty confident that it's not going to have any more leaks. The next on the to-do list was to replace the map sensor. The other day I scanned the car and it came up with two codes, which I'll show up on the screen, and it leads to the map sensor. So I'm gonna have to take this battery out and have a look at the map sensor because I have a feeling that it's probably still the original one. Alrighty, so the battery is out. I'm just gonna show you the map down here, which says in the little white box there, 2602. Now that tells me that the map sensor was made in the 26th week of 2002. So that sensor is now 23 years old. Now, it's probably good that we replace it, and I have a new one right here. So let's go ahead and replace that. Alrighty, so the old one is now out. We need to double check that the new one is the exact same, which the part numbers all line up. Otherwise, if you got the wrong one, then it's not going to read this whole system correctly. So it's very important that the part is the exact same. Now, we need to also clean up the surface area of the mounting, and then we can reinstall the new one. So we've now replaced the map sensor. We can go ahead and plug that in now. There we go, nice quick. But whilst I was doing that, I've realized just here, these earth straps are nice and corroded. So we're gonna go ahead and take that off and clean it up, because that there could also be a reason why our voltage is dipping in and out, because it's part of the circuit. And if that is corroded and isn't actually getting a good ground, it isn't able to complete the circuit. And yeah, our car again isn't going to run correctly. So I'm going to clean that up and then put it back on. So the contacts are all nice and clean now. They were really green before. I cleaned both this one and that one. Now the next thing I wanted to do was replace this connector that is on the fuse box panel, as someone previously had snipped this off. Obviously some pretty dodgy soldering job here, and moved it into this fuse box relay. Now this plug is for 30 amps and they've moved it into the fuse box panel, which is now on a 50 amp wire. So that isn't too good. So I got this off of the wreckage yard. If you want to see the video where I got this off of a Golf, I'll leave the video in the top right corner right now. But we're going to go ahead and replace this now and start soldering these wires onto these, and then we should have a nice new plug. Okay, so now that we've soldered these wires up and put some heat shrink over them, we're going to wrap them in electrical tape, and I also have some thermal fleece tape to wrap over that. And then I think next on the list of this car, we're going to replace the thermostat, because ever since I've owned this car, it hasn't gotten up to temp. Originally I thought it might have been just the temp sensor, but after replacing that, I've realized that it's actually still not getting up to temp, and it's sitting around 60 or 70 degrees. So we're going to replace that. And I thought whilst we're down there and replacing that, I'd replace the alternator as well. So we're going to do both of those. Okay, so to gain access to the alternator, we're going to have to move this intercooler pipe out of the way. So we'll do that right now. Alrighty, so now that that's out of the way, we can now go ahead, take this alternator belt off, move these intercooler pipes out of the way, brake booster hose as well. I might go ahead and actually take this whole intake manifold off. I'm not too sure. So I can just get all this out of the way and just pull the alternator straight up and out. But I have a new gasket for the intake manifold anyway, so I know that that's going to be fine. Okay, so we've got the injectors out of the way, the harness, everything is unbolted. This intake manifold is ready to come off now. So move that out of the way. So now that the intake manifold is off, we have a lot more room to play around and do things. Now we're going to go ahead and remove this alternator and replace it with the new one. We need to unplug this and the earth cable here, and we need to move this tensioner out of the way and pull the belt off. I didn't necessarily need to take the intake manifold off to do the rest of all this, but I wanted to have a look down to see if I can find any other issues that were probably caused by previous owners. Now I just found out that this harness right here has been snipped off. As you can see, the wires here that go to literally nothing. And I just realized that this doesn't actually have the secondary water pump. They've just deleted it here and blocked it off and snipped the wire off. So later down the track, I'm going to have to reinstall a secondary water pump onto this thing. But for now, we're going to go ahead and do the rest of this other stuff that I have, and then maybe get onto that in another video. That looks pretty new, so I don't think I need to replace that. Okay, now we need to take this tensioner off. First bolt out. I think I might have just seen that the other one's been snapped off. So regardless, I think we're gonna try pry this thing away so we can move it out. We left off, I took the top bolt off and I realized that the bottom bolt had been snapped at some point, and they just decided to put it back on and leave it. Now, I don't have anything that I can get down there, so I just decided, because I'm not going to use this and the bearing's pretty bad, I just snapped it off there and used the pry bar to snap it off. So we can take this out, and then we just need to take the bolt off. But that's off and out, so we can replace it. But yeah, we just need to now take this bolt out. Nice. Now we just need to get a new bolt for that matches this one here. We have so much more space to take this thermostat out and do everything else we need to do. We're gonna have to head down to the hardware store to grab another bolt for the alternator. So let's head down there right now so we can put this alternator back in. Alrighty, let's see if we can get a new bolt. $4.38 later, we now have our bolts and some washers. So let's head back to the shed and get this alternator back on. Okay, so we're back at the shed now. We've got our alternator bolts, but I think we're going to now take this thermostat flange off, take our thermostat out and replace it with a new one, because I think we're experiencing that the thermostat is now stuck open, and that is why our engine is running too cold. So I've just thrown a tray down there and some cardboard so I can catch at least majority of the water that comes out. And I've just realized from just draining a little bit that there isn't really any coolant. This is actually some leftover coolant from the Polo, but this is what really came out of the S3. So there's not really actually coolant in here, there's just water. So I'm glad I'm doing this. We'll unbolt these two now and then pull it off, take the thermostat out and then replace it out. So now that we've disconnected the thermostat flange and we've removed that, we can grab a pick and hold onto the thermostat itself with the pick and pull it out just like that. We've removed the old thermostat and you can see it's all just pretty much water that's been inside this thing. So I have plenty of coolant to replace that all with. So the old thermostat is now out and we'll have a look at that and see what went wrong. Okay, so we got the old thermostat out. Honestly, just by visual inspection, I can't really see what's necessarily wrong with this one. I thought it may have been stuck open, but I can't really see that it is open. So you know what? I mean, we've come this far, so we're gonna replace it anyways, and definitely put some coolant in there instead of just water. But whilst we're at it, I went ahead and got an aluminium flange instead of the plastic ones, because these tend to crack with age and all the heat cycles. So yeah, definitely a must to replace these with aluminium or metal ones. Okay, so we've got our new thermostat with a jiggler. I just prefer these ones with a jiggler on them because they're just a little bit easier to bleed the system with compared to these style ones, although this one is OEM. It's just a preference really. But when you reinstall them, if you have one with a jiggler, just install it with the jiggler facing upwards like that. So it needs to be up like that. If you have the jiggler on the bottom or on the side, it won't work properly. So we got that in. We also got a new O-ring, so it's a good practice to sort of wet the O-ring a little bit, so then when we put this in and we put the flange on top of it, it doesn't get pinched. And otherwise, if this gets pinched, it's not going to do its job of actually sealing the area and it will leak. So we'll go ahead, install that in right now, put the flange on, bolt it up, and then start putting the alternator and the rest on. Okay, so now the thermostat flange is all bolted on, we can go ahead and replace our alternator and we can put the new one in. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and now the alternator is now installed. It is looking good. Everything is nice and fresh. We're gonna go ahead and chuck the tensioner on, the belt, the intake manifold, and everything else I took off this thing before, so we can get this thing up and running again. So I'm gonna go spend some more time on this thing, put it all back together, and I'll see you guys when it's all back together again. The engine bay is now back together. I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. It's looking nice and fresh. I'm hoping that it runs really good because I spent all day working on this thing. I'm gonna leave it for tonight because it's currently 11 p.m. and I'm tired. So we're gonna head home. There is one more thing that I need to do, which is this brake line bracket. It seems to have come loose. So I'm going to need to get a new bolt for that before I can put the wheel back on. And I also need to bleed the system for the coolant. And then I think we're ready to start this thing up. And I'm hoping that it runs really good and we'll take it for a test drive. So I'll see you in the morning. Okay, so it's the next morning. I've got a new bolt onto the brake line bracket. So that's all good and ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and put the wheel back on. Okay, and that's on now. We're gonna go ahead and just double check everything is good to go in the engine bay. And then we're gonna go ahead and start this thing up. Fingers crossed this thing runs. Moment of truth. It's actually sitting pretty flat, it's not bouncing at all. And the voltage is not dipping either. Damn. The motor sounds pretty healthy. I think that's a good outcome. I'm pretty happy with the way that it's working now. Although we need to fix the fog lights. They've been stuck on ever since I've had this. They must be hardwired or something. We're gonna go ahead and just let this thing warm up a little bit. Let it bubble the coolant. It currently has a high idle because it's cold, and then it should just drop down when it's warmed up. So we'll take it for a test drive once this thing's warmed up and it's bubbled the coolant. So I'll see you guys then. Okay, so we're in the S3. The thing is driving pretty good actually. I'm slowly creeping up to our normal temp, and once I've hit 90 degrees, if it sits there, we're gonna go ahead and actually put our foot down a little bit and see if this thing is boosting correctly. And it seems to idle really smoothly as well, which it didn't before. So, and our voltage doesn't have any issues as well. Our voltage is just staying put, it's not dipping or anything like that. So we're sitting at 90 degrees, sitting at 50. We're gonna do a bit of a pull in third and see if we can create some boost and actually get going. Oh yes. It's definitely creating boost now. It definitely didn't do that before. That is so nice. Honestly, I need to feel that again. That is insane. Third, downshift. Now those are some beyond amazing results with this car. I can't wait to do more work to this thing. It's finally boosting how it should be. Now, if you want to see more work to this thing, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to see more content from this channel, as I'll be posting weekly, hit that subscribe button. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Pretty insane cars around